Louisville, Kentucky, 1961. The air hung heavy with summer heat and unspoken tension. A young Cassius Clay, only 19 years old, walked with the confidence of someone who had already tasted victory. Olympic gold gleaming in his memory, his steps were light, despite the weight of the world on his shoulders. The wooden sign of Hartman's Diner swung gently in the breeze, its faded letters promising home-cooked meals and southern hospitality. "And I'm telling you, Jimmy, I'm gonna be the greatest of all time," Cassius said, his voice carrying the melody of conviction as he spoke to his childhood friend walking beside him. "Folks just don't know it yet," Jimmy smiled, accustomed to his friend's declarations. "I believe you, Cash, but first, let's get some food in you before you float away on all that talk." The bell above the door chimed as they entered the diner. The scent of fresh coffee and fried chicken filled the air, but something else hung in the atmosphere too, something less tangible but just as potent. Conversations dimmed to whispers, eyes darted their way, then quickly averted. An older waitress approached, her lips pressed into a thin line. "Can I help you, boys?" Her emphasis on the last word carried volumes of meaning. "Table for two, ma'am," Cassius replied, his smile unwavering. "Heard you make the best apple pie in Kentucky." "We're full up," she said flatly, though several tables stood empty. Jimmy tugged at Cassius's sleeve. "Come on, let's go someplace else." But Cassius stood rooted to the spot, his eyes scanning the half-empty diner. "Full up doesn't look full to me." A large man emerged from behind the counter, wiping his hands on a stained apron. George Hartman, the owner, with forearms like hams and a face weathered by years of kitchen heat and hard living. "Son, we don't serve your kind here," he said, just loud enough for the entire diner to hear. "Nothing personal, just business." Cassius felt something shift inside him, not just anger, but a profound sadness that pierced deeper than rage ever could. In that moment, standing on the worn linoleum floor of Hartman's Diner, the Olympic gold medalist was reminded that in some eyes, his achievements meant nothing compared to the color of his skin. "I understand," Cassius replied, his voice steady despite the storm brewing within. "But one day, sir, you're gonna know my name. The whole world will." As they turned to leave, an elderly black man who worked as the dishwasher caught Cassius's eye from the kitchen doorway. The silent exchange between them spoke volumes, a shared understanding of indignities endured and the quiet strength required to face each day. Outside, the summer air felt different now, heavier, charged with the reality of a world that still saw some people as less deserving than others. "Don't let it get to you, Cash," Jimmy said, breaking the silence as they walked away. "It's already gotten to me," Cassius replied, "and I'm gonna use it. Every closed door, every ugly word, it's all fuel. You watch." What Cassius didn't say was how deeply the rejection had cut. Not because he needed Hartman's approval, but because in that moment, he was made to feel like a stranger in his own hometown. The city that had raised him, shaped him, had places where he still wasn't welcome. That night, in the small bedroom of his family home, Cassius wrote in his journal, "They can deny me service, but they can't deny my destiny. Remember Hartman's Diner. Remember this feeling. One day, things will be different." If this story has made you feel something already, no matter how small, don't leave without giving back. Comment and tell me where you're watching this video from, and subscribe to the channel. The years passed like rounds in the ring, each one bringing new challenges, new victories, and new growth. Cassius Clay became Muhammad Ali, not just changing his name, but evolving into a figure larger than boxing alone. His fights became global events, his words poetry in motion, his stance against injustice as powerful as his left hook. Philadelphia, 1974. The weather matched Ali's mood, restless, electric, unpredictable. He sat in the back of a sleek black Cadillac, watching the city streets pass by as his manager Herbert talked business on the car phone. "The Foreman fight is set for Zaire," Herbert said, hanging up. "They're calling it the Rumble in the Jungle." Ali nodded, his mind elsewhere. "I got something I want to do first. Driver, take us to Louisville. We're making a detour." Herbert raised an eyebrow. "Louisville, now?" "We've got training to—" "Some things can't wait," Ali interrupted, his tone making it clear the matter wasn't up for discussion. 2 days later, the Cadillac rolled into Louisville, stirring whispers wherever it passed. The city had changed, but not as much as the man returning to it. Ali directed the driver through familiar streets until they arrived at a particular corner. Hartman's diner still stood there, though the sign was now more faded, the windows less gleaming. Business had declined as the neighborhood changed and newer establishments opened nearby. Ali stared at the building, memories washing over him. "Wait here," he told Herbert, stepping out of the car alone. The same bell chimed as he entered, but this time the conversations didn't stop. They exploded into excited murmurs. "Is that— can't be— Muhammad Ali?" George Hartman, older now but still imposing behind the counter, froze when he saw who had entered his establishment. Recognition flickered in his eyes, followed by something that might have been shame. Ali approached the counter with the same confidence he showed in the ring. "Table for one," he said simply. Hartman hesitated only briefly before nodding to a corner booth. "Right this way, Mr. Ali." As Ali took his seat, he noticed the elderly dishwasher, still there after all these years, now with grey hair and more lines on his face. The man gave him a subtle nod of respect, which Ali returned. A young waitress approached, practically vibrating with excitement. "It's an honor, champ. What can I get you?" "Just coffee," Ali replied, "and information." When his coffee arrived, Ali sipped it slowly, taking in the diner. The place that had once denied him service was now filled with people stealing glances at him, some even approaching for autographs which he graciously provided. After finishing his coffee, Ali approached Hartman at the counter. "Your diner for sale, Mr. Hartman." The older man's eyebrows shot up. "Not officially, but times are tough. Might consider the right offer." Ali nodded. "Have your lawyer call mine." "I'm interested." As he turned to leave, Hartman called after him. "Why would you want this old place? After what happened?" Ali paused at the door, looking back over his shoulder. "Because history matters, and so does what we do with it." Outside, Herbert was waiting with a concerned expression. "You're not seriously thinking of buying a diner in Louisville?" "Not thinking about it," Ali replied with his characteristic smile. Doing it." What Ali didn't share with Herbert was the deeper motivation behind his decision. It wasn't about revenge or even making a point. It was about transformation, taking a place of pain and turning it into something new, something better. The past couldn't be erased, but it could be repurposed. That night in his hotel room, Ali called his wife. "Found a building back home," he told her. "Gonna make something good out of it." "Another gym?" she asked. "Dunno," he replied, looking out at the Louisville skyline. "Something more important, a reminder that things change if we make them change." Louisville, 1976. The renovation of the former Hartman's Diner had been completed under a shroud of curiosity. For months, local residents had watched workers coming and going, transforming the tired building into something new, though few knew exactly what was planned for the space. Henri stood across the street, observing the final touches being applied to the building. New windows gleamed in the morning light, and a fresh coat of paint had erased years of neglect. The only thing missing was the sign that would come tomorrow for the grand opening. "Nervous?" asked Howard, Ali's lawyer and friend, standing beside him. Ali laughed. "I've faced Joe Frazier 3 times. This is just setting things right. The next morning arrived with unusual fanfare for the small Louisville street. Word had spread that Muhammad Ali, the heavyweight champion of the world, Louisville's own son, had purchased the old Hartman's Diner building and was unveiling something new. A crowd gathered behind hastily arranged barriers, reporters positioned their cameras, and local officials stood ready with prepared remarks. At precisely 10 o'clock, a car pulled up, and Ali emerged to thunderous applause. He waved to the crowd, his magnetic presence drawing all eyes as he approached the building. George Hartman stood among the spectators, older and somewhat diminished, watching with an unreadable expression. Beside him was his son, Michael, now in his 30s. When Ali spotted them, he made his way over. "Mr. Hartman," Ali said, extending his hand, "thank you for coming." Surprise registered on the older man's face as he hesitantly shook Ali's hand. "Didn't expect an invitation." "This day isn't just about me," Ali replied. "It's about all of us, where we've been and where we're going." Michael Hartman stepped forward. "My father's been wanting to speak with you, Mr. Ali, for years now." Ali looked at the older Hartman, waiting. "I was wrong," George said simply, his voice roughened by age. "What I did, how I treated you, there's no excuse." Ali placed a hand on the man's shoulder. "There's always time to change, Mr. Hartman. That's what today is about." Turning to address the gathered crowd, Ali moved to the front of the building where a cloth covered the new sign. Camera flashes popped as he gripped the cord. "15 years ago, I wasn't allowed inside this building," he began, his voice carrying across the hushed crowd. Today, I own it." A ripple of applause started, but Ali raised his hand for quiet. "But this isn't about ownership. It's about opportunity. It's about making sure nobody else has to feel what I felt that day." With a tug on the cord, the cloth fell away, revealing the sign, "Ali's Open Door Community Center." "From this day forward," Ali continued, "these doors are open to everyone, every color, every faith, every walk of life. We'll have tutoring for kids, job training, community meals, and a place for people to just be together, because the only way past our divisions is through them, face to face, person to person." As the crowd erupted in cheers, Ali was handed a large pair of ceremonial scissors. Before cutting the ribbon stretched across the entrance, he paused and looked directly at George Hartman. "Times change," he said, loud enough for those nearby to hear. "People can too." With that, he cut the ribbon and the doors to the new community center swung open. As people began to stream inside, Ali noticed the former dishwasher from Hartman's Diner, now an elderly man, standing quietly at the edge of the crowd. Ali made his way over to him. "Mr. Wilson, right?" The old man nodded, surprised to be remembered. "Yes, sir, Walter Wilson." "First job at the center is yours, if you want it," Ali said. "Program coordinator." "Good salary, benefits?" Wilson's eyes widened. "Me, but I don't have any—" "You have experience," Ali interrupted gently. 13 years watching things that needed changing. Now you get to help make the change." Inside the converted building, the old diner counter had been repurposed as a reception desk. The booths remained, but were now study stations with books and learning materials. What had once been the kitchen was now a classroom space. As Ali walked through the transformed space, a local reporter approached him. "Champ, you've achieved so much in your career. Where does this rank?" Ali looked around at the diverse group of people filling the center. Children, adults, black, white, all together in a space that had once been a symbol of division. "Fighting wins titles," he answered. "This wins something more important." 2 years passed, and the Ali Open Door Community Center had become a Louisville landmark, not just for its famous owner, but for the genuine difference it made in the community. Children received tutoring that improved their grades. Adults found employment through training programs, and bridges were built between parts of the community that had long been separated. On a crisp autumn morning in 1978, Ali's car pulled up outside the center. Despite his busy schedule of fights and appearances, he made regular visits whenever possible. Today was special, the center's second anniversary. As he entered, he was greeted by Walter Wilson, who had indeed taken the job as program coordinator and had thrived in the role. "Morning, champ," Wilson said with a smile. A big crowd already. The main room had been transformed for the celebration. Photos lined the walls, showing the center's work over the past 2 years. Tutoring sessions, community meetings, holiday celebrations, each image capturing moments of connection and growth. One wall featured before and after pictures, the original Hartman's Diner, alongside the renovated community center. Below these hung a framed newspaper article from 1961, describing how Olympic gold medalist Cassius Clay had been refused service at a local establishment. The headline read, "Future Champion Faces Hometown Rejection." Ali stood before this display, lost in thought, when someone approached from behind. "I'd never thought I'd see my old place looking like this." Ali turned to find George Hartman standing there, leaning on a cane, but still straight-backed and proud. "Your son said you haven't been well," Ali said. "Didn't expect to see you today." Hartman nodded. "Cancer. Doctors say not long now. Couldn't miss this, though. Needed to see it one more time." The two men stood side by side, studying the transformation documented on the wall. "You know," Hartman said quietly, "when you bought this place, I thought it was about getting back at me." Ali shook his head. "Never about you, always about them." He gestured toward the room full of people, diverse in age, race, and background, all gathered in celebration. "My son's taking over the family restaurant business," Hartman continued. "New location, new name. He's making changes I should have made decades ago." The formal ceremony began soon after, with various speakers highlighting the center's achievements. When it was Ali's turn to speak, he kept his remarks brief, focusing on the future rather than the past. As the celebration continued, Ali found a quiet moment to slip away to his small office at the back of the building. There, he found Michael Hartman waiting for him. "My father wanted me to give you this," Michael said, handing Ali an envelope. Inside was a deed and a letter. The deed was for a vacant lot next to the community center, property that had also belonged to the elder Hartman. The letter explained that George was donating it for the center's expansion. At the bottom of the letter, George had written, "Some debts can never be fully repaid, but we can always try." When Ali emerged from his office, he found George Hartman preparing to leave. "Thank you," Ali said simply, holding up the envelope. Hartman nodded. "Least I could do." As the older man turned to go, Ali stopped him with a question. "If you could go back to that day, what would you do differently?" Hartman considered this for a moment. "I'd open the door," he said finally. "Simple as that, I'd open the door." After Hartman left, Ali found himself standing at the center's entrance, watching people come and go freely through doors that welcomed everyone. A reporter who had been covering the anniversary celebration approached him. "Champ, everyone wants to know, when you bought this building, what was going through your mind? What did you want to say to the man who turned you away all those years ago?" Ali looked around at what the former diner had become, not a monument to past wrongs, but a living, breathing space for future possibilities. "Just 3 words," Ali replied with his characteristic smile, "Welcome to change." Later that evening, as the celebration wound down, Ali stood alone in the community center. The space was quiet now, chairs stacked, decorations being taken down. He walked to the large front windows and looked out at the neighborhood, the place that had once rejected him and now embraced his vision. In that moment of reflection, the true victory became clear. It wasn't in buying the building or even in transforming it. The victory was in transforming what it represented, turning a symbol of division into one of unity, a place of rejection into one of welcome. As Ali prepared to leave, Walter Wilson approached with a logbook. "We thought you might want to see this, champ. We've had over 10,000 people come through those doors in 2 years." Ali nodded, taking in the significance of the number, and not one turned away. "Not one," Wilson confirmed. Outside, as Ali walked to his waiting car, he paused to look back at the building one last time. The sign caught the last light of day, Ali's Open Door Community Center. Below it, in smaller letters, was the phrase that had become the center's motto, the 3 words that summed up everything Ali had sought to achieve. Welcome to change. If you've made it this far and felt every word, don't leave without subscribing. I tell these stories with my heart in my hand to reach people like you, who feel, who get emotional, who live. If this truly touched you, give back, comment, subscribe, come be part of this family with me until the next video.